Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I thank the honourable lady for her intervention. I don't say this very often, Mr. Speaker, but thank goodness for Twitter. Because when we were told that the copy of the letter would be in the library, my very able assistant, Holly Higgins, ran across to the library to see if she could get a copy. Meanwhile, I observed on Twitter that journalists had it already. And so, thankfully, we were able to see it nonetheless. But it's cynical, Mr. Speaker. It is totally cynical, as the honourable lady points out. And it's cynical behaviour because, as other members have said very clearly, the government is trying to bully us. They are trying to exert their will and force us to vote for their proposal. And we know this because of what the letter said. The Prime Minister says that she intends to put forward a motion as soon as possible under the Withdrawal Act and make the argument for an orderly withdrawal and a strong future partnership. And she says that if the motion is passed, that she is confident that Parliament will proceed to ratify the deal constructively. But other members have already said at length how convincing the vote against the Prime Minister's proposal has been. We know that this House does not want that proposal. And following the amendments and statements put forward by other members of this House, we know that the House of Commons has voted conclusively no to no deal. So we don't want the government's deal and we don't want no deal, and the government accept that. So therefore, by definition, the government has to change course. It needs to come to this House with a different proposal. And that's also necessary for the government's own stated objective of having a delay, because we know that the European Union do not wish to agree to a delay for no apparent purpose. They want to see a change of course. It is, Mr. Speaker, that simple. Now, I hear what other members have said about proposals to allow this House to express its view in some way, and no doubt that we will do that, because Lord knows, Mr. Speaker, if we've demonstrated anything over the past 2 years, it's that this House is capable of passing amendments if it wishes to. And we will express our view. But we are the legislature, Mr. Speaker, not the executive, and therefore, by simple definition, it is the case that we do not have executive power. So we need the government to commit to changing course. We need them to bring forward proposals of how a different path will be taken. Because something else is true, Mr. Speaker, and that is that the executive is not the legislature. They cannot tell us what to do. They cannot force our hand simply by fiat. We have to hear from the government what their proposals are, and then we have to vote on them, either to accept or to refuse. And in the end, we can make the policies for process and discussion and deliberation as complex as we like, but, Mr. Speaker, it is as simple as that. We now need a change of course from the government that we can deliberate on, that we can vote on, and that we can decide on. We all have a responsibility here to make our political system function as it should. Because if we don't, Mr. Speaker, then it's not just the government that are complicit in opening the door to populism, it's all of us. And I don't say those words lightly. We all know the consequences of getting this wrong. So I simply beg the government to have no more bullying of this House, no more trying to bash us into voting for a deal that we've already voted down absolutely, conclusively and convincingly. Let's have no more of that. Let's have a change of course and a policy that we can support. Because my frustration, Mr. Speaker, this afternoon, and having this debate that's been dominated by reams and reams of words on process, that is not about the central issue about if or how we leave the European Union. My frustration, Mr. Speaker, is as nothing to the decisions that are having to be made now, as the Secretary of State knows well, because he's in charge of the no-deal preparations. Our frustration is nothing in comparison to the frustration of individuals, of businesses up and down this country, having to take decisions that they don't want to take because the government is simply unable to plot a course to help our country move on. And I say, Mr. Speaker, in conclusion, that people in our country want us to focus on the things that really frustrate them, that really bother them, be it the desperate growth of food banks or the need for all young people in this country to have a proper chance in life. That is what they want us to focus on. So please, Mr. Speaker, I ask the government, change course, make a proposal, let's vote, and then let's move on.